And welcome back to the show, Elana Freeland. It's great to have you on again.
Hello. Welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's awesome. It's been 7 months since our last talk. Now, we can't wait this long next time, but it's so tricky, Elana, because a year goes by in a blink. And man, oh man, how's everything been with you?
Well, I've been writing, as you know. I mean, it's 2.5 years it took me to do this latest book, and I'm so glad that I'm finally done.
Well, tell us a little bit about this, because we need a little bit of a crash course here. I know that it has a lot to do, obviously, with what we're living through right now, because you are always so... You're always there talking about prescient things. So tell us a little bit about the book, the title, and what the main themes are inside of it.
The title is Geoengineered Transhumanism, how the environment has been weaponized by chemicals, electromagnetics, and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. I know it's a mouthful, but it really tells the story of my final book on geoengineering. As you may remember, Frank, I've done 2 other books. One came out in 2014, one came out in 2018. Now this one's coming out in 2021, and I really feel that I have told the whole story as I have learned it through this last book.
I can't wait to hear about this one, because especially when you bring up the idea or just the topic of synthetic biology, everything that we are careening towards right now smacks of that very thing. And I don't know if it's self-explanatory or there's more to it, but still, where would you tie in what's going on right now in the last 7 months to what is portrayed and really dissected in the book? Because we now, since the last time we've spoken, we have 7 more months of this really intent, this very strong push to push the vaccines. That is obviously just a term that has been agreed upon because it is a gene therapy. Everything that we're talking about, that is being played off in the foreground of what is going on in the background, which, of course, is Davos. Davos, they are the 4th Industrial Revolution group that have been talking about the Great Reset since the beginning of this. They very nakedly have wishes for bringing humanity toward a cybernetic singularity. So how would you start weaving all this together?
Well, for me, my addition to this story began with the understanding of what geoengineering really is. The way it's portrayed in the controlled mainstream media, it sounds like something to just ameliorate climate change or global warming. And it has to do with solar radiation management. They're dropping chemicals in the stratosphere in order to bring the environment into control and lower the heat, blah, blah, blah. All of that is really a cover story, and I prove it particularly in this book, for the agenda, which has to do with synthetic biology. Now, a lot of people really don't know what synthetic biology is. It's not biology like we learned in high school. It's not molecular biology. They are converting molecular biology into digital biology. And of course, you bring up the word digital, we know we're in the realm of electromagnetics, wireless technology. We're looking at artificial intelligence, AI. We're looking at the cloud that everything is stored in. And we come to a term which I use very liberally in this book called brain-computer interface, BCI, also known as brain-machine interface. And what this means is that we are being transformed in part by our environment, because the environment has been built carefully over the last few decades to be utterly wireless, And at the same time, we're breathing in, as I proved in the last book, we're breathing in these nanoparticles from what is being dumped in the stratosphere for many, many military industrial intelligence operations. And initially, when I first started this series, I thought that chemtrails and the geoengineering were all about military projects for the secret space program, thinking of, yes, wireless communication, chemicals that would release particulates into the atmosphere so that the atmosphere would be more amenable to many, many thousands and thousands of wireless operations. I didn't quite have it together to figure out that biology, our biology, human biology, was really at stake, and that it was intentionally being fed certain miniature technologies that we would breathe in, eat in our food, drink in our water supply, and that those miniature technologies would be utilized in order to control our brains from remote places and actually adjust our biology to fit with a brain-computer interface, an AI-run human being moving us from human 1.0 to human 2.0, as I think Dr. Carrie Madej describes it. And that is transhumanism. And a lot of people don't know what transhumanism is, so let me spend a moment on that. The idea of a human being that they use the word for enhanced, quote unquote. Something, it sounds like we're going to be made superior, we're going to be faster, we're going to be smarter, we're going to be more capable of directing our appliances with our mind only, all these wonderful sounding progressive Star Trek type things, when really it isn't quite that shiny and appealing when you start digging down and looking at what is really happening to us. And one of the things that you can notice right away, before we even look at what has happened in the last year and a half to people, either vaccinated or non-vaccinated, is that our minds are getting fuzzier, hazier. Our ability to, our memories are just out of reach. Our ability to concentrate, our ability to study and retain, all of these things have been weakened over the decades by, I maintain, by television particularly. I'm constantly telling people to throw their TV out. But is it only that? No, it isn't. It's also the epigenetics of our environment. And there's another new term that we're going to have to get used to, epigenetics. And that has to do with using the environment to change genetic attributes. And you can think of genetic attributes as just being a few qualities here and there that get changed. But no, that's not really what's going on. The epigenetics of our environment, the fact that our environment has been built to really adjust us to prepare human 1.0 for the jump to light speed of human 2.0. It's hard to believe that this could have been done right in front of our faces. But we're used to the idea of pollution. We're used to the idea since 2015 of climate change, of global warming, of carbons being the culprit here. And so we've been, if we think that we're being bamboozled by a story now, we've been bamboozled by one story after another for about 50 years, basically, in my mind, since John Kennedy was gotten out of the way and the secret space program could begin. Because the secret space program, if you think about it, this is a term that Catherine Austin Fitts actually taught me. It is really it isn't just about going to Mars and cruising around in extraordinary exotic craft that we constantly hear the disinformation stories about being due to UFOs from other planets. We really have these extraordinary technologies, and we can do extraordinary things with them. But what was hidden by stories like that is that there are other things going on, tiny things going on in the atmosphere that we are interacting with without knowing that, and we're not being told that we're interacting with them. And so now we see that this so-called vaccine, and you're right to use the word gene therapy for this, it's really a gene alteration that the jab or the inoculation is, with the mRNA going into our bodies, and various antibodies being made, various of the spike protein proliferating. All of this is about bringing us into a sort of software situation in which we're implanted with various diseases that can be whistled up remotely by 5G systems, 6G systems, with the tiny millimeter waves, and even the terahertz-sized waves. This is all part of making sort of a hive mind out of the transhumans. I maintain that those who are choosing the jab are really heading into transhuman experimentation, and that this is why it's such a big deal, and why there's constant misinformation and changing information, and governors being raised and then being replaced. And obviously in front of us is a very large drama going on.
Yeah.
And this drama is not just for power and profits, as we like to think with Big Pharma. No, it's actually much larger than that, and it has to do with a dream that secret societies have had for, I don't know how long, 1,000 years, hundreds of years.
Well, I want to ask you specifically about that, because you said a lot there, and what I have locked onto a few things here so far is, number one, there have been, especially with the times that you've been on the show in the past, there's been people who are still very dubious about the existence of nanotechnology, and especially for it to be so easily taken into our bodies just by breathing the air, or eating and drinking processed foods or anything like that. But over the last year and a half or so, we have seen nanotech, injectable microchips, brought out to the entire public. We've seen things as so small that they can fit inside of a needle and inject it into somebody. The Pentagon has been talking about, we're supposed to believe that this just popped up out of necessity now, but the Pentagon came out recently so that they want to be able to develop a chip that can go inside of people to detect virus levels at all time throughout. They're always monitoring people for virus levels because they're very, very concerned about our health. But here's the thing that gets me, and it's a big question I've always had, and it really comes down to what you were saying there. When we're specifically talking about the injections, the jab there, that's something where that could be more so relegated to the person taking it. We know we've been listening about shedding and all that, but as far as someone injecting themselves and someone not, there's a little bit of a separation between the two. But the environment is something completely different. That showers down on everybody, elite and the lower rung, the everyday people like us, for whatever the hell it is. So my question to you is, we always hear about these technologies and the methods being employed to alter us, to control us, to inhibit us from developing in one way or another, and to ultimately dominate us. But what about the controllers? We know that they're always looking for ways to extend their lifespan, as I was I was reading before I got you onto the show tonight. But beyond that, what do you think that they envision for themselves? Is it to live as a pristinely human as possible while the rest of us live like, over-injected cattle? Or do they believe in transforming themselves into something other than human as well?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I think it works. Let's picture a hierarchy. Let's picture a few at the top who know pretty much everything that's going on. And then as you go down the pyramid of power, need to know and compartmentalization takes over. And rung after rung after rung really are told a different story, have a different slant on what's going on. And above all, there is some means by which they're being controlled. Now, some of them, it can be money. Some of them, it can be powerful prestige and positions. Some of it is going to probably have to do with blackmail, of perhaps them with children, photographs of them with children, so that their entire career and their entire lives would be shattered if it went public. So there are many ways to control people where very few at the top know exactly what's going on. And those people now, the insiders, they have the antidote to protect themselves from the environment having been absolutely taken over. They have state-of-the-art filters in their homes. Perhaps they live underground where they can control it even better. They have the best water that you can possibly have. They have chefs. So for them, the idea of being human may actually be something to them which is repellent. And I know that they look down on us, we the masses. They sometimes take some of us who are the brighter or have something to offer them that can be used and then thrown away when the use is over. But basically, I don't think they want to be human at all. I think they want to be, they may not be conscious of it, but they want to be fantastic machines. And I actually think some of them already seem to be behaving like machines. Now here I'm going to get very science fiction for some people, but not for me, because remember, I've spent 2.5 years reading many papers, many patents, many accounts, and thinking over all the material in order to give the best facsimile of truth that I can possibly do in the pages of the book for laymen who are kind of stuck dealing with technology that not only are they not being told about it, but they are now subject to it without knowledge. And it's already operant. I mean, we're not talking in the future sense here, Frank. This is already a done deal. It's already happening. But now we need to pick up the pieces of how the technology works, because certainly, as was true with the chemtrails a long time ago, when people would ask me 10 years ago, Elana, how do we stop the chemtrail program? Well, I never even imagined that I could stop it. But what I've always concentrated on is learning as much as I can about the technology so that I can see how we're going to deal with it, because we are not the titans of this age. The titans have access to money, power, blackmail capabilities. They can wipe out nursing homes with, at a command to an underling. So they're in another class from us. And to me, they don't want to be human. Yes, they might want to be the ones who can fly on a weekend to Yellowstone Park and walk around alone there, having already rented it out for the entire weekend or something like that for the family. But they really inherently, if they really look at themselves, they lack certain qualities which I certainly relate to being fully human. And that has to do with our virtues. That has to do with our humility, with our forgiveness, our ability to forgive, our imaginative capabilities, our caring for others we will never meet. I mean, there are all kinds of things that I have in the virtue category, whereas they pretty much look at being human as being weak, inefficient, not really being all it could for how much you could get out of it, sort of like an energy system. And that's how I see them. I've studied this class, and I call it the elite class. I've studied them for, oh gosh, at least 2 decades.
It's you using the terminology that really paints them as robotic is really the best way to do it. When we watch their press conferences, when we know that they're lying, when they know that they've been caught, but still with a smirk, or sometimes people, for example, someone like Kamala Harris, who is such a sociopath, but they all have their own specific tics. For anyone to be able to bust out in maniacal laughter to things that are just not funny, but it's like it almost seems like they are aliens searching for some kind of a grip on what a human would do in certain situations. But the poker faces and the unwillingness to admit you are wrong because you know that you're ultimately working toward another goal is so disturbing, but it also makes them easier to hate because you don't really see humanity in them anymore.
Right, but to hate a machine,
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, to me, you're absolutely right. But what's wonderful is, have you ever in your lifetime had it this exposed before, the
No.
presence of evil?
No.
And what it can look like. I mean, that's the really good news about what's going on now, is they are utterly transparent to us now, but not to everyone. You can see where some are still in the slave mentality and doing what they're told, as being a good citizen, as being a good person, as being a good Christian, as being a good Jew, whatever it is. I mean, everybody is at a different phase of development. The reason I've worked so hard at this with great perseverance, when I say 2.5 years, I mean every day of study and work and constant, is because I now see that they really want to wipe out what has been human. The human who is connected to nature, the human who has basically been brought up by the mother nature, and whose bodies respond to natural food grown in our beautiful planet. They really want to be rid of that, and that comes from their machine or their AI influence. I think that it makes sense to me that the leading powers of the world now, with all the money and all the power, would seek out people to serve them who have already are in relationship with AI, who are already cyborgs, already have laid their humanity on the altar, and now pose a vacuum in their nature into which an entity along the lines of an artificial intelligence can enter and begin to operate as a certain personality with a few tics here and there. But most people will listen to CBS, NBC, ABC, no matter what, no matter who is running it. And this readiness at this point, I don't know if you remember, but when the Wuhan footage showed of the people dropping in the streets,
Yeah.
which right away told me that I needed, that I was right, that 5G was completely operant in this capability, this remote capability of basically depleting the oxygen in the blood in a one fell stroke, and leveling that person to the ground. that was only 3 weeks after Elon Musk had gotten thousands of satellites, of 5G satellites, into the air. And so, all of this has been carefully planned. All of it has been heading toward this desire to be as gods on the planet Earth, to eliminate any idea of God, to eliminate any idea of the divine nature of the human being. When the doctors first started talking, I always remember too, Dr. Tom Cowan, MD, and Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, both of whom came forward with an early talk in 2020, and right away quoting Rudolf Steiner as having said 100 years ago that eventually there would come a vaccine that would, if one took it, one would no longer think of anything having to do with the divine or religious or God. And certainly this is the vaccine. This is what was foretold 100 years ago. It is very much along those lines, because it is to be an AI move toward plugging us in to the brain-computer interface, that one day we will wake up and we will find ourselves alive inside the internet. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Well, it was a lot harder to believe about 10 years ago, but we've been having a lot of side conversations and what-ifs about the whole Matrix, the Matrix conversation, and how they would try to assimilate many of us in there. But there's going to be a lot of resistance there, because no matter how big the Titans are, I do see a lot of people starting to really understand that things are very, very bad, and they're worse than we thought. And it is very science fiction-y once you start getting to the bottom of it all. And I'm glad that you brought this up, because this might be the fourth time that you've been on the show, and we have had technological, biological based conversations before, and this is in many ways still along those lines. There's always something to talk about, and we definitely have to come and get you on the show again one night to do a Rudolf Steiner night, because we did go that right there, the writing that you're talking about right there about the kind of injections, the vaccines that would almost nullify and take away and dull out the soul and that connection to the divine. We have gone through that a couple of times, and I know that you have a whole section on your website devoted to Rudolf Steiner, so we got to talk about him one night. But since you brought us to this situation here about spirituality, that's something that we have never talked about together, and I know that you've written extensively on the subject of ritual abuse. We are ritually abused through media, through education, war, drugs. This week, abortion was pretty much just defended in some respects as being a religious sacrament to some. That is not an exaggeration. It was described as a religious sacrament, which is why abortion, not life, needs to be put forward and protected at all costs. Can you talk a little bit more about the spiritual conditioning that we are experiencing right now? Because we know it's pretty stark about the environmental conditioning that we're going through. But as far as the spiritual conditioning, how do you pick that one apart?
If you take Satanism seriously, which most people don't, very sadly, Satanism is a real religion, and its devotees are as dedicated as the Christian is to Christ. Their dark lord is entirely different, and their rituals are, as many know, sort of contrived to invert the Mass, the Catholic Mass. That's how we've thought of it. Now Satanists have gone technological, and I say something about this in the book that's about to come out. I talk about how the military went through a very big change with what's called the Revolution in Military Affairs in the 1990s. But even before then, the military was being changed by the influence of certain people who were in the military. And one of these was a practicing Satanist who was consistently protected by the military when he would be caught in various, usually child abuse situations. So we have to remember that this is a real thing, the Satanists, and I take them very seriously because their ritual, yes, their sacrificial ritual has to do with killing small children and bleeding them out and drinking the blood, etc. I mean, it's the reason people avoid talking about it and thinking about it is it's repulsive to decent people, to people who love children, who see children as young souls coming into the planet and want to protect them while they get their bearings and find their way to their adulthood and to fulfill their own destinies of why they even came to the earth. So you know, there obviously is a clash, a war between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. I mean, we've heard about this in ancient literature for thousands of years. This is not new, but it has a new guise. It has a new way of presenting itself, and that's what we need to unlock, and we can only unlock it through knowledge and not shirking our duty as the people whose watch this is. That's why we're here. We're not here by accident. We all chose to come here now, and we have to ready ourselves. We can't just give way to fear, give way to disgust. We have to face what is presenting itself. And that's the good thing about how it's all coming out. I mean, think of how many years, Frank, I've been on this trail. I have been on this trail for 40 years. From the time I began to realize that there was an entire underbelly, what I call sub-rosa America, and that we needed to understand that it was destroying the nation, it was destroying the people of the nation, it was destroying the coming generations. And so I've taken it very seriously and have pretty much unstintingly pursued it, to the degree that it's also about the chemical trails and the wrong finger being on the geoengineering button and how it can be used politically to control other nations, to bring drought to Iran, to bring floods to Japan, whatever it is. This is power, and it has to be faced. So to me, our ability to stand firm now is imperative, not just for our own selves or our children or our grandchildren, but for the future generations coming. This planet and the human being are intimately interrelated. People who have this ridiculous conditioning that without humans, the planet would be better off. It makes no sense to me, because we are together. And the planet needs us for its consciousness. We need the planet for everything that has to do with our growing consciousness. And what I don't want is I don't want a satanic takeover of the free will of humanity. I do not want the genetics changed in human beings to transhuman status that can then be altered and directed at will remotely. And that's what will happen. That's exactly what will happen. People are being plugged in with this jab. They are now plugged into the cloud, and more and more, it won't be just devices that are activated by their presence, or the fact that they are now affecting the health of the others around them. It will also be that they themselves will become instruments of those who seek to completely eradicate the true human being, so that, and to sort of jeer at the gods who have Rudolf Steiner says that the human being is the religion of the gods. Why? Because it is a spiritual being, a spiritual status being in a physical body, in a physical world, attempting, striving to be spiritual in a very different environment than it's from. And that's really how I look at it, is that this war now has reached a certain peak now, and it is all coming out. Nothing can remain hidden forever. And so now let's take a look around. Let's change our strategies. Let's change how we look at things. If we're materialists, we're going to have to consider the immaterial. If we are scientists, we're going to have to consider the fact that the uncertainty principle goes much further than we thought. That everything is in motion, and the moral nature of the human being is the true human nature. That it's not the arms and legs and head that makes a human being. No, it's the moral nature, where we strive and struggle to do the right thing by others and ourselves, and all of it. That's the beauty of being human, and I'm here to protect it.
That rings so true. That balance and that connection between, and the needing, the yin and the yang between the human beings and the earth itself, and the very modernist way of divorcing the two, or making one incompatible with the other, or us being nothing more than a bacteria, some kind of an infection. It really is, when you say all that, and when you went through multiple things there, very, very inspiring, but inspiring not in a hopium kind of a way, inspiring of as Ernest Hemingway said, the truth has a certain ring to it. And
yes.
when you feel it, it just reverberates through you, and you're like, yeah, despite all the nastiness we're facing right now, it's good to know what's true. And that's when does the book officially come out, and where can people find it?
Well, I've finished writing, finished editing. It's with the formatter now, and it will be out by the end of the month, is how it's looking. Of course, I was with Feral House for my first two books. They treated me very nicely, but I finally left, hoping I could make a little more money if I were on my own, now that I have a large fan base. So I'm doing everything myself with a small team of lovely people with a little bit of money. And so end of the month. And I recommend people, instead of waiting to order on Amazon or wherever it's going to be, the Rudolf Steiner bookstore in Seattle has very graciously volunteered to do all pre-orders. And so far, there are about 100 people who've pre-ordered.
Well, Elana, please, whenever the day comes closer, if you let me know, if you can keep me in mind, just let me know when everything's going to be going live, and whether I can get you back on or not at the end of the month. I would definitely spend a couple of minutes letting everybody know how to find the book and where to order it. If they, there's a lot of people, they don't bother with pre-orders. They just wait until it comes out. And I know that. I've only pre-ordered a couple of things in my life. I just I'll just buy it when it's out. But when it's out, please let me know, because I would love to remind everybody to go and find this. This is the end of a planned trilogy, you said, right?
Yes. I mean, was there a plan? Each book gave birth to the next. But I see now that I have arrived at as much as I can really tell people. I mean, I would love to do a book on plasma. There's a few things I would love to write about, but not in the geoengineering perspective that I've had in all three books that's carried through.
Well, I'm interested in everything you do, and I cannot wait to get back to you. In fact, when I write to you after the show, I'm going to throw you some dates out in maybe early November. So maybe it's just 2 months instead of 7. It would be great to have you back. So thank you.
Fine, that'll be great.
Well, everybody's eating you up tonight. They love it.
Yeah, people can find me at elanafreeland.com. That's my web mistress, keeps that site going, bless her heart. And then I'm also, Facebook has kicked me off now. Fantastic sites I had gone. So now I'm at gab.com under geoengineered transhumanism. I'm trying to survive on the internet with all the purges going on, and I'll do that as long as I can.
Well, it's great to have you. In fact, after we get off the air here, I'm going to. We're live on YouTube right now, just so that people can watch live. After I get off, I will be deleting the episode because I'm hosting it elsewhere. But it's just maybe that keeps us around. Gives us a couple of more months. I'm always just thinking, just like you. We're getting chased. We're getting chased from lily pad to lily pad here. But as long as people can hear the conversation, I'm down for it. Elana Freeland, thank you so much for the time. It's wonderful to hear from you again.
Thanks a lot, Frank.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.